We're looking at the backyard garden and seeing the changes that have happened over the last few days. I ended up getting a load of composted bark mulch, which has been just fantastic. It's this darker color part of the ground, so I've been slowly spreading that and weeding as I've been going along. I'm hoping that will add some food to the garden, which is a very sandy soil. The little citrus fruits are growing, although I think quite a few have fallen off. I'm assuming it's not going to be the healthiest plant just because it should have been transplanted, and I only started feeding it when I realized it was full of flowers and it should have been fed sooner. This is a penstemon. It's kind of an old-fashioned garden flower, and I discovered that quite a few years ago and have collected seeds and moved them along with me and shared them with friends. It looks like our irises, the yellow irises, have finished off. Their blooms were just stunning, but only lasted for a few days. This is my first purple iris. I love how it has almost a bluish color in the garden. I love blue flowers, but those are not very commonly found. I transplanted this little Shasta daisy, and it seems kind of wrong to do, but I'm going to actually just pick the flower off. And the reason for that is all the energy will go into setting roots as opposed to trying to keep the flower alive and trying to get the flower to produce seeds. That's one of the very hard things I find as a gardener is picking off those first flower buds when you just want to enjoy them. But it's so much better for the plant to let them just, focus on putting their roots down and having a healthier plant, which in the long run should produce more flowers. This is what the ground looked like before. I just allowed all the leaves from the winter to stay in the garden, and then I'm spreading the mulch over that. A lot of people clean all the leaves off, but I have such poor soil that I figure anything that can be composted and break down will help feed and add nutrients to the garden. This is my little wooden cage to protect this tiny azalea. It's a miniature azalea, and I actually accidentally stepped on it the other day, so I'm trying to make sure I don't do that again. The coral bell is looking really lovely, standing up straighter. And this is grown from seed. It's a lupin, and looks like it's doing pretty well now. Some of the others that I planted are still probably a quarter of the size. So it's just amazing what adding the right nutrients does for plants. This is another transplant of a Shasta daisy. Sorry, not a Shasta, it's a Barberton daisy, or a Gerbera daisy. This plant was covered with little white, I think, thrips probably 2 weeks ago, and after a very soapy, sudsy bath of dish soap, it looks like I got them all off. And there's the first flower. One of the nice things about perennial plants is that you can just separate them and transplant them to different parts of the garden or share them with friends. When it's a healthy ecosystem, they should come back each year. So what I'm going to do with this plant over here, it looks like it's actually got two separate plants. So I'm going to take one of those out and transplant it to a different part of the garden. These transplants have done just great over the last week, and I think the reason that they've done well is just because of the protection I gave them. I actually just placed a big plastic tote in front of them, just kind of prop it up on the edge of the garden, and that way they're not dealing with the really hot sun of the middle of the day. The delphiniums are looking lovely, and they have quite a true blue on the edge of them, probably why I love these guys so much. So the center part is kind of purple and the outside is really quite a pretty blue. This was another transplant yesterday, and it looks like it's doing really well. I've watered it probably 3 times already. This was another Barberton daisy or Gerbera daisy. It had grown fairly well, but it was in a very shady spot and never produced any flowers last year, so I thought we'll give it a new spot and see if it does better there. The yarrow looks like we actually have some new leaves for the first time. These ones that are a little bit more of a kind of a lime color. It just kind of hung on the last year or two. You would occasionally put out one new little leaf, but it just did not grow, did not thrive. So I gave it some earthworm castings and lots of compost tea, and it seems like it's starting to grow now. Looks like our amaryllis is getting ready to flower. It's kind of hidden here. I'm sure this will open in the next day or two, and there's another bud behind it, so that looks really lovely. I'm very excited to see that in flower. So this little patch is looking quite lovely, filling out nicely. A new neighbor gave me this from her garden, and I'm not sure what it is. It almost looks like an ornamental, oh goodness, like maybe an ornamental pomegranate. I'll have to figure out what that is, but it's a pretty little plant. This is my all-time favorite. It's called a bulbinella or bulbine, and it's a favorite because it is just such a versatile plant for all kinds of injuries. It works really well on burns, especially sunburns or steam burns, and the leaves are kind of like an aloe but have much stronger properties. It also works really well for acne or various skin ailments, and removes warts. So it's just a very, very wonderful plant, and that comes from South Africa. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll check in again in a few days' time and have a look and see what's been changing and how things are growing.